So sometimes there is way more in a daily lectionary reading than I can possibly get to in the course of 5 or 6 minutes. That's the case today. So instead, I'll just take a portion of today's epistle reading from the letter to the Hebrews, the current lesson from the daily lectionary, and reflect on its meaning for us in the church today. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. And this is your daily devotional for Saturday, February 3rd, 2024. Today's reading from the letter to the Hebrews begins with very practical guidance for Christian living. Would the same writer say the same thing to us in the church today? Honestly, there's just no way to know. Our situation is so vastly different, at least for us in the West, that drawing hard and fast conclusions about what he might say today is well nigh impossible. On the other hand, we can draw pretty firm conclusions about his advice to his congregation and what was behind it. That's what I'll try to do today. So a quick recap. We have a beleaguered little Christian community that is losing its zeal for the faith largely because of external pressures, social ostracization, economic depravity, and even outright persecution. The writer of the letter sees it as his task to shore up their flagging faith, which he does through a combination of sound teaching, of gentle cajoling, and of encouragement using the examples of the faithful in the Old Testament. Now he turns directly to the question of how they should relate to one another and to the community around them, the non-Christian majority that they see as their oppressors. Before I read this passage, let's imagine the possibilities, and there are many. In fact, based on a reading of different books of the New Testament, you could imagine a range of things he might counsel. He might call the prevailing culture demonic and counsel his flock to withdraw completely into their own insular community, shunning insofar as possible the culture around them. If you read the letters of John and Revelation, you might expect this kind of advice. But the writer of Hebrews is not of this mind. He might be more like Paul, advising them to get along with the culture around them, even honoring their pagan rulers. Or he might issue a call to arms. After all, he has been busy shoring up their faith. In the hands of some zealots, this might lead to armed conflict, even if it would mean their certain deaths. Better to die as martyrs, some might think, than to live as sheep, just waiting for the next round of persecution. But none of these are what he counsels. Let me get out of the way of his words. He writes, "Pursue peace with everyone, and the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and through it many become defiled. See to it that no one becomes like Esau, an immoral and godless person who sold his birthright for a single meal. You know that later, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, even though he sought the blessing with tears." Pursue peace with everyone. Is this just a strategy to keep them safe? Or is there something more to it? Well, if he stopped with the advice to pursue peace with everyone, it could easily be read as a piece of prudential advice. Keep your heads down, he might say. But then, strangely enough, he brings up Esau and uses him as a negative example of faith. How does the story of Esau relate to the advice to pursue peace? I think it means that pursuing peace is part of the very substance of Christian faith. Pursue peace even when it may lead to further persecution. Pursue peace because it reflects the substance of the faith. The problem with Esau is that he wanted the expedient thing, in this case a single bowl of stew in exchange for his very birthright. Picking fights with one's neighbors and tormentors might feel good for a moment, might be like that bowl of stew, but its long-term effect is destructive to the very character of faith itself. Allowing bitterness to take root in one's life or in the life of the Christian community would lead to the ultimate destruction of one's own faith and the faith of the community. Persecution is not the enemy. Bitterness leading to conflict That's the enemy. I dearly wish many in the Christian church today would hear that message once again. When we return Monday, entertaining angels unawares. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.